Good afternoon to everybody and welcome for this essential interview. Today we have the pleasure of having a very special guest all the way from Australia, John Shipton. You probably don't know his name. However, let me just do a bit of introduction. WikiLeaks, 2006, Julian Assange, over 400,000 secret military documents related to Iraq, 90,000 on Afghanistan. Somebody that has been held in custody against his own will for many years. And we have the pleasure of having John Shipton. He's his father. John, good evening. Welcome to Francois. Welcome to France.
Thank you. Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
And you came all over and you're doing a tour of Europe right now because, of course, on Tuesday there is a very special audition at the French National Assembly where there's a group of French MPs who have taken on to seek for political asylum on behalf of Julian. Maybe in order to set the scenery for the French viewers and whoever is going to look at us, can you please tell us a little bit what is the history behind WikiLeaks? What is the history of your son?
Okay. Well, the foundational idea is, I could say, Prometheus unbound, that the only way to freedom is through knowledge. And Julian, back in 2005, came up with this idea, this insight, or this moment of genius, if you like, that the public having access to computers, and at that time there was about 60 million, the public having that access, if you put the information up and made sure that it was accessible, the public themselves would form forums and analyze the news, and analyze whatever data you displayed, and consequently make decisions, informed decisions which would guide community life, national life, and family life and private life. And so that was the extraordinary beauty, that at the foundation, the understanding from the French Enlightenment that Prometheus unbound, that is, the only way to freedom is with knowledge. And subsequent to that, the construction of WikiLeaks, which brought out all of the files that you subsequently mentioned. And I would add to that, that the disposition of those ideas over a period of 2 or 3 years has precipitated into the societies of the West, particularly the English-speaking societies, who are the foremost warmongers. And the public consequently have removed support and even invented a name, Never-Ending Wars. This wasn't top-down. This was a bottom-up phenomenon of the public slowly enculturated with the understandings that were held on WikiLeaks and published by many others, about 100 partner publishers, slowly seeped into the consciousness of a vast public, and support for Afghanistan was removed. Consequently, the United States found itself having to remove its troops from Afghanistan. Similarly, Iraq. The United States found that there was no support for its destruction of Iraq and had to remove its troops. And Guantanamo Bay, which is an offence against nature, there's still 80 people there. There are 800 and the original prisoners, and some of them were children. That is on the verge of being closed. So that's sort of a pocket history of 10 years, the phenomenon of WikiLeaks, the fundamental idea that freedom only comes with knowledge, and knowledge can come from the way that it's held in the knowledge and the data, the way it's held in WikiLeaks and many other publications, no doubt like Francois as well.
Thanks a lot for that. Knowledge is for Julian freedom. For many people, knowledge is power. We've seen the suppression of a number of, or attempt of suppression of a number of narratives, especially in the Anglo-Saxon world. In the Anglo-Saxon world, trying to prevent the truth from coming out. So what's the balance?
Well, you know, the Anglo-Saxon world responded with hounding Julian for his ideas with a most savage malice, with scandalous, unscrupulous application of lies and calumnies, frame-ups, conspiracies between the Swedish prosecuting authority and the Crown Prosecuting Service, malicious treatment of Julian in court case after court case. I think now there's been 11 court cases in total that Julian's fought over these 12 years. The deriding of the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, which determined Julian was arbitrarily detained. That report ignored and derided. They brought out a further report in February 2018. Again, that report was derided. And subsequently, the United Nations Rapporteur on Torture, Professor Nils Melzer, a professor of international law at Glasgow University, brought out a report stating that Julian was being psychologically tortured over a period of 10 years and characterized it as a slow murder before our eyes. So the power that WikiLeaks and the idea of holding data before us so we could do our own analysis, the power that gave us people was fought over savagely by those that want to be able to keep secrets and consequently embark upon crimes against humanity, of which there have been a tremendous amount over the last 10 years. If I could just add to that, the great contributions of the people of the world after the catastrophe of the Second World War, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, the establishment of the United Nations, wherein states would relate to each other through law, the Conventions of Asylum, 1958, ratified in 1973 by the United Nations General Assembly, all of those magnificent civil artifacts which hold nations together and enable us to settle problems. Each of them has been, well, ruined progressively in the case of Julian Assange, and a grotesque monster put in their place, a rules-based order wherein whomever has the most power on the day makes up a rule. This is really a collapse into barbarity over a period of 20 years, which we can see manifested in the way nation states of the West respond to their populations, in particular my country, Australia, responding currently to those that wish to question current policy on vaccines or whatever, really. It doesn't have to be vaccines, but if you question government policy, the response is severe and dangerous.
So on the one hand, knowledge is power. On the other hand, it's collective intelligence. Julian has had a lot of followers around the world. He was one of the first, I would say, whistleblowers. Obviously, he's currently being detained. Why are you in France today?
Well, over the period of a couple of years, those concerned parliamentarians, again, this is another beauty, that the charm of the parliamentary system is that the concerns of the electorate are taken to a parliamentary representative, and that representative takes those concerns in community with the balance of Parliament, and the executive have to act on the concerns of the Parliament. The Parliament is sovereign. It represents us and gives credence and mandate to the government that can remove that mandate. In the case of Julian Assange, 38 deputies have taken their concerns and asked the executive to offer to Julian asylum in France. Now, this is really important. I can't stress this enough, that the first place that WikiLeaks was published was France. Julian lived in France, in the Marais. He has a French family. WikiLeaks was registered in France. It fought its first court case for publication in France. When Julian was arrested in the United Kingdom, in London, he was on his way back to France because the Marais area was his home with his French family. So France benefited from WikiLeaks in the following instances. The revelations that the President of France, his telephone was tapped by a branch of the American CIA or NSA or one of the alphabet agencies. Equally, the revelations that the privacy collapse was principally aimed at economic warfare against France, and which we see a manifestation of in the last couple of weeks, where $90 billion, a huge sum of money, was stolen from France by the United States in concert with the Australian government. The revelations about the European Community Bank, the ECB, allowed French people into the insight of the workings of the ECB and how they were being influenced by the United States, in particular the United States Treasury. So all of these gifts that WikiLeaks and Julian made were from the work he originally did living in France with his French family. So that's an important point to understand, that it starts in France and moves to Europe because it's a European publication. The Guardian, the Der Spiegel, Le Monde, Liberation, and El País in Spain. So it's a European publication, completely attempted to be destroyed and oppressed and intimidated by the United States. It's a very profound and difficult problem facing Europe and in France in particular, that the access to information which guides Europe in its decision-making, guides Europe in its policy-making, is attempted to be repressed and removed entirely by the United States.
And so, of course, on Tuesday, there is this hearing at the National Assembly with these 38 MPs. You will be present.
Yes.
And you will give a speech there.
I will speak, hopefully it'll be short and pithy and to the point.
And so you've been in contact with these MPs. Of course, as you mentioned, France has some special circumstances, or at least the relationship between WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, with respect to his history. But have the fundamental values of France of freedom, equality, and fraternity, are they important for you and are they providing you with hope that there will be a positive outcome to this?
Yes, the foundation, and joy of new countries like mine. It's only 200 years old, but the same with the same for all Western people is the French Revolution and its symbols, fraternity, equality. These guide us these actually are a measure which continues to speak to us in enabling us to examine where we are now. So these declarations that underpin the French Revolution are a measure against everything that we do can reflect, and we can know where we are and how we stand against the fundamental ideas that guided the French Revolution. And funnily, well, not funnily, it seems again that France is leading the West out of the mire of repression with the success. It doesn't look like it to a lot of people, but to me and many others, the Yellow Vests were successful in a lot of their aims. A lot of what the government of France intended to do was stopped by the activities of the Yellow Vests. And I don't mean that lightly, because I understand 11 people died and many people lost their eyesight. But I think if I could repeat, it seems as though the energies in France are rising up again to give example to the peoples of the West, to measure ourselves against the original fraternity, equality that underpinned the French Revolution. Really important.
And so, if we turn to Julian Assange's sort of current state of health, what are his current detention sort of situation?
Look, it's
conditions?
If I may say so, it's heinous. You know, Julian and Stella made application to marry, which they have 2 children. It's okay, put their affairs in order. The governor of the prison refused. The Department of Justice in the United Kingdom refused. So Julian's lawyers and Stella's lawyers took them to court. It was only in the last minute, just 24 hours they had until the papers were served on the Department of Justice and the prison governor, that they surrendered and said, oh, sorry, okay, you can get married. It's another example of this savage malice that these people, they just can't stop themselves. They have got into some sort of hell from where they think up another malicious attack upon Julian Assange and then sign the papers so concerning this attack and then go home and have a glass of wine. It's just appalling. Anyway, that exemplifies. Julian is held, is a publisher, a journalist, is held in a maximum security prison, 22 hours a day in a prison cell. And it's just maddening.
So, of course, there's been a lot of talk about that in the French press. On Tuesday, you will be in the French Parliament. What are you hoping will come out of this? What do you hope will come out of this hearing?
I would like to see the people of France offer asylum to Julian Assange and his family. That's what I would like to see. This would be an honourable action of France and an example to as France continues to be in a lot of respects, an example to the rest of the Western world.
Have you been at all in contact with the President Macron's staff, or?
No. My job is to advocate for Julian. I think it's best that I don't meet politicians, and I haven't met any throughout my travels throughout the world. I think it's best not to meet, just to put in place the best I can the circumstances that a politician may act within. Also, in regards to Julian Assange of WikiLeaks, it's an upwelling of support. It's not, there's no rainmakers in this. It's an upwelling of support from us, from people everywhere, that has motivated parliamentarians, politicians to act on this matter.
And of course, behind the sort of WikiLeaks, we've had a number of other individuals that have been involved. The analyst Chelsea Manning, Craig Murray, a friend of his. They've had sort of different chances because, of course, one of them has actually been sentenced. The other one has been put aside in Scotland. So, what would you have a special word for them because they've also been instrumental somehow?
Well, I see. I don't know whether this will be a bit out of court, but I see Chelsea Manning as a Joan of Arc. Such courage. And not courage just for a week, but courage extending over 12 years. It's extraordinary. And with Craig Murray, his gift of being able to write, to be able to evaluate what is wicked, what is, well, to use a religious word, what is evil in the administration of justice in the United Kingdom. Consequently, he's had to spend the last 4 months in prison. I went to his home the day before yesterday and stayed there with his wife Nadira and his 2 children and the extended family. They've all gathered together to support Nadira, and spoke to Craig on the telephone. He'll be freed from jail at the end of November. So we will go and welcome him back into the world, as we will do Julian shortly.
And so maybe one final word. Julian has had a lot of followers, supporters around the globe, a lot of activists in France. What would you like to say to these people who have supported Julian throughout this constantly?
Mille grazie. 1,000 of thanks. Is just I have my job. I mean, it's us that have caused the change, and I and you and I, we ride on the shoulders of many, many thousands of people around the world. And so that gift to us, we acknowledge by saying thank you.
Well, John-Shipton, thank you very much for coming today to, I would say, be interviewed at François, provide sort of with, I would say, the words to the French readers, French viewers of François in English, and really talk about what has become, I'd say, an example for us all in terms of loyal information, freedom of information. Information is power, collective intelligence. We just hope that there'll be a positive outcome on Tuesday. Thank you very much and best of luck on Tuesday.
Thank you. Au revoir, monsieur.